What if your greatest gifts came from your deepest wounds? What if everything that was meant to break you became the impetus for your most powerful abilities? The DRACO-ETAMIN lineage tells a story about how empathy can emerge in the most unexpected places, and how oppression can catalyze extraordinary evolution. These are the star beings who developed advanced intuition as a survival response, who turned empathy into self-defense, and who countered oppression with compassion. Their sensitivity became their strategic advantage, because in the shadow of Thuban dominance, feeling what others intended, sensing the truth beneath mental projections, was the difference between survival and subjugation. The Draco constellation winds through our northern sky like a celestial dragon, and within this ancient system lies the fixed star ETAMIN, also known as the right eye of the dragon. Depending on what year you were born, you'll find ETAMIN somewhere between 27 degrees and 28 degrees of Sagittarius. ETAMIN is currently sitting at around 28 degrees and 18 minutes of Sagittarius in the Draco constellation. Also, I use an orb of about 2.10 degrees based on the Astrology King's website. Whether you have natal alignments to the fixed star ETAMIN or you're simply drawn to these energies, this video will help you understand and work with DRACO-ETAMIN frequencies in your life. Hey, I'm Kellie. The DRACO-ETAMIN beings are the empathic oracles and intuitive guardians of the Draco lineage. And if you watched my previous video, Thuban versus Draco, explaining the split between these two lineages, then you already know that this story is complex, nuanced, and incredibly powerful. But if you haven't seen that video yet, here's a quick recap. Galactic mythology tells us that the beings we call Dracos, or Draconians, were exiled from their original universe. Then they landed in or around the constellation we call Draco, hence the name Dracos. While working on this video series, I started glimpsing some of the pieces that were not found in books or other videos, like the pheromone splicing experiments. My previous video goes into more detail, including a story about a skunked dog, which you got to check that out. But essentially, the original group of beings that landed here in the Draco constellation were all from the same lineage. And the first beings that they started experimenting on was their own kind. This genetic modification was done to create a subordinate response in one group by removing the pheromones that allowed them to disrupt the nervous system of their opponent, like on the battlefield or in combat, which was a very big thing for the Dracos when they got here. This experiment allowed the original group to remain dominant while creating submissiveness in the modified group, the ones we now call Etamins. Over time, the DRACO-ETAMIN group was no longer able to biologically produce that pheromone, making the split in the lineages permanent from a biological perspective. Over time, the Draco-Thuban group, the ones doing the experiments, got used to this automatic compliance. They expected it. This expectation created complacency, and that complacency created blind spots. But survival of the ETAMIN lineage that was emerging required something else entirely. By this point, they were far enough removed from the aggressive and violent compulsions, the ones that they had when they got here, so much so that they just had to evolve in a different direction. Over time, the Etamins sat anxiously in the shadow of Thuban's arrogance, in that space between fear and fortitude. And during states of suspended anxiety, they developed intuitive discernment like heightened intuition, heightened sensory awareness, empathic attunement, the ability to feel intentions beneath projections, mystical perception that could pierce mental illusions, and clairalience, which is clear smelling. What's cool to me here is that empathy and compassion accelerated their path. Empathy and compassion became their evolutionary advantage. Literally, empathy was its own jurisdiction beyond the reach of Thuban's predatory grasp. Empathy walked a very narrow path between danger and deliverance for the Etamins, and it was worth the risk. Advanced intuition, cloaking, and lucid imprinting. The Etamins' aggression was genetically suppressed long enough that they learned to feel what others intended, to sense truth beneath projections, and to cloak their energy completely. Empathy is described as the ability to understand, share, and vicariously experience the emotions, thoughts, and perspectives of another person. It involves recognizing specific emotions in others and suspending judgment. The evolving Etamin lineage didn't have to guess what it was like to walk a mile in Thuban's shoes. They were originally the same. They were exiled as one group, permanently banished for how and what they were. Etamins understood this core wound because they still carried it too. The next gift to emerge for the Etamins was cloaking. I go into greater detail about cloaking and lucid imprinting in my previous video, but here's a quick summary for context. Think of cloaking as the ability to hide or disguise their energy signatures as well as their physical presence and location, which was an extremely useful gift. For the Etamins who first learned how to cloak, they understood the importance of becoming unrecognizable, or essentially invisible, when Thuban groups invaded their villages or homes. They learned to cloak their energy completely, to become invisible when needed. The next level of psychic evolution that the ETAMINs developed is something I call lucid imprinting. Think of lucid imprinting as the intersection of mental projection and cloaking. Both are distortions in the mind's visual field. An oversimplified explanation of this process is the ability to construct a mental distortion for a specific location and a fairly specific time or time frame. This distortion generates a holographic morphic field that then gets projected over the location and extended forward into the local timeline and held in place by the group that created it. There's more to it than that, but I think you get the idea. ETAMINs Catch-22. I want to touch briefly on a couple of the karmic imprints that some DRACO-ETAMIN starseeds may experience, such as adaptive guilt and various forms of rejection. The first Catch-22 I mentioned in the other video is something I just basically call the double rejection wound. This deals with first being rejected by Thuban, like the original Thuban group, for being different. So empathically sensitive in a culture of dominance. That's a big deal for them. And the second part of this comes from either being or feeling rejected by others simply for being Draco, so guilt by association. This energy or projection from others may feel like no and also no, or ghosted twice, or getting fired before even getting hired, or feeling like a double smackdown, or it's not you, it's, oh wait, it is you. So rejected coming and going, no matter what you do. And if this energy or rejection isn't coming from others, and the source may feel more internal, it may be self-defeating patterns or perspectives from you that look like, I'm sorry for being gifted. I'm sorry for taking up space. I'm sorry for not suffering enough. I'm sorry for surviving, or I'm sorry for existing. At the core of this wound, what's really happening underneath, subconsciously or karmically, is feeling too sensitive for the original Dracos or feeling too Draco for spiritual people. DRACO-ETAMIN alignments. Transit overview. Every year, there are multiple alignments to the fixed star ETAMIN, creating regular opportunities to connect with these energies and the star beings from this ancient system. For example, the moon travels through the entire zodiac in basically 28 days, creating a weekly connection through conjunct, opposite, and square alignments. While the moon connects with ETAMIN weekly, the sun creates 4 powerful seasonal gateways throughout the year. You can use the following approximate dates as a guideline for tuning into the DRACO-ETAMIN energies through these 4 seasonal gateways. December 17th to the 21st, Sun conjunct ETAMIN. March 17th to the 21st, Sun square ETAMIN. June 17th to the 21st, Sun opposing ETAMIN. And October 17th to the 21st, Sun square ETAMIN. Depending on which source you look into and your location, some people give specific times to meditate, such as day or evening. I say choose a time that suits your energy and ability to focus, and just go with it. Don't overthink it. Energy attunement and meditation overview. Want to tap into the DRACO-ETAMIN energy right now? Whether you want to meditate or simply attune yourself to any of the ETAMIN transits, here are 3 core frequencies to focus on: empathic sovereignty, lucid imprinting, and strategic visibility. Empathic sovereignty, which is feeling deeply without losing yourself, maintaining boundaries while staying open to connection. Lucid imprinting, weaving reality through focused visionary work, influencing future timelines through conscious intention. And strategic visibility includes choosing when to be seen and when to protect, trusting that visibility can be safe. If you want to meditate on these energies, focus on this core message. I allow myself to be visible and take up space without permission or apology. I claim my sovereignty without fear, my gifts without shame, and my endurance without guilt. You don't need DRACO-ETAMIN alignments in your natal chart to work with these energies, but if you do have natal aspects, you may feel these frequencies more intensely. And you may also recognize some of the patterns we're about to explore. Hey there, Editing Kellie here with a quick reminder to always check the description and pinned comment for freebies to keep your Starseed toolbox stocked with helpful resources. And also for the random promotions and discount codes being offered like this one to help you roll into spring with clarity. I've opened my books for March and I'm offering a quick promo for 15% off my most popular session, the Starseed and Galactic Origins reading, for the first 7 people who book the discounted session on or before February 22nd, the 222 portal. When you book your reading for March, you get a 2+ hour live reading with me that's also recorded so that you can replay it as often as you need after the session is done. It also includes a 30+ page custom report and personalized star chart for only $188. Slots for March will be available on a first-come, first-served basis when you complete your booking and order your discounted session by the expiration date. So click the link in the pinned comment and be sure to use the promo code 26activate-188 to save over $30 on your reading. Can't wait to meet you. So I have DRACO-ETAMIN conjunct my natal moon in the 3rd house. And when I was working on this video specifically, not just the Draco series, but this video specifically, while I was reflecting on where this shows up in my life or where it's been most noticeable, my awareness went to working in corrections. I was in corrections for 5.5 years. And when I first started, I was blown away at what happens when you lead with empathy and compassion when you treat people with dignity and respect, especially those who are not used to it. Not every inmate, but a lot of them had hard lives. They were used to living on the streets or just having to be in survival mode continuously from a very young age. And so when I interacted with them from a place of dignity and respect, not judgment, not projection, it was uncanny for me in the first 3 to 6 months to see the difference in how they responded. There were many of them right away that didn't know what to make of this. I remember booking people in from a variety of backgrounds, different ethnicities, different socioeconomic situations, but a lot of them still dealt with substance abuse or physical abuse or abusive situations in general. I remember booking them in and just treating them with common dignity and respect, asking them questions, remaining calm when they got upset. They looked at me like I had a third head, and I didn't know what to make of this. And I was like, am I being rude? Did I say something wrong? Like, what's happening, right? After that happened several different times with a variety of different people, different genders, different ages, different ethnic backgrounds, I started realizing a pattern. They weren't used to being treated with respect or dignity. They were used to being shamed or projected on or told that they were worthless or told who knows what in life by parents, by family, by teachers, by friends, by partners, whatever. And so it blew me away. And in some moments, it was truly devastating to feel what they were feeling, to feel what they were experiencing. And that disconnect, the fact that they couldn't reconcile what it was like to be treated with respect and dignity, it was overwhelming when I finally made that connection. So never, ever underestimate the power of compassion and empathy in any situation. You don't always know where people are coming from, what they're going through, what they've been through. And in some cases, it can be just as life-changing for you. And in some cases, it can be just as empowering and life-changing for you as it is for others when you have that exchange, when you have that empathic, compassionate exchange with people who've been vilified for most of their life, if not all of it. It does make a difference. What you do matters, and how you do it matters. Trust that. Starseed qualities and integration challenges. For those connected to DRACO-ETAMIN energy, whether through natal alignments or simply recognizing this star family as your cosmic lineage, here are some of their key starseed traits and qualities. Your empathy and intuition operate at a soul level. You feel intentions, sense truth beneath projections, and recognize manipulation instantly. Your connection to natural rhythms is primal. You sense shifts in collective consciousness, planetary energies, and environmental changes before others. You're naturally drawn to divinatory and visionary practices, prophetic dreams, lucid dreaming, astral projection, and perceiving future timelines. You possess multidimensional pattern recognition, so you immediately notice energetic anomalies and can track energy across timelines. You're also skilled at correcting mental distortions and creating safe sanctuary spaces for transformation. As always, along with these profound gifts come some integration challenges. For ETAMIN Starseeds, we have adaptation guilt and spiritual overcompensation, which offers the opportunity to learn that your gifts don't require justification. Hypervigilance and survival mode consciousness, so learning grounded discernment, releasing the constant scanning for danger that once kept you safe. And then there's shame about your Draco lineage, which can help you integrate all aspects of yourself, releasing the need to apologize for your existence or dimming your light. Okay, talking about these DRACO-ETAMIN qualities by themselves only gives you part of the picture. Where these energies land in your chart makes a huge difference in how you'll experience them. Now that we have some clear ideas about the core traits and qualities of DRACO-ETAMIN Starseeds, let's explore ETAMIN energies through all 12 astrological houses. ETAMIN through the 12 houses. First house, piercing presence. Your clarity of presence is immediately sensed or observed when you enter a space. There's an empathic depth to you that people feel before you speak, like an inner knowing that radiates from your being. You naturally embody the compassionate guardian, and people instinctively sense your intuitive gifts and your protective energy. Your awareness penetrates facades and false projection. You see through what others present, sensing the truth beneath surface appearances. This isn't aggressive or invasive, it's simply that you perceive reality on multiple levels simultaneously. When balanced, your personal boundaries are both firm and compassionate. You know when to cloak and when to be visible. When unbalanced, paranoia may override your natural intuitive discernment, causing you to shut down or avoid situations even when you're actually safe. The work here is learning to be visible without shame about your Draco lineage. Your greatest challenge is releasing the tendency to cloak your presence as a default response, even when there's no actual threat. This work involves developing comfort with your empathic gifts being immediately apparent to others. This placement asks you to discern between protective cloaking and habitual hiding. The shadow territory here is hypervigilance that makes you seem distant or unavailable when you're actually just protecting yourself. The shadow emerges when overcloaking becomes automatic. So you may habitually hide your true nature from either inherited fear or conditioned shame rather than genuine threat assessment. Some ETAMINs with this placement struggle with adaptive guilt showing up in their physical presence. So this may look like apologizing for taking up space, minimizing their gifts, or unconsciously making themselves smaller to avoid triggering others' projections about Dracos or just being gifted. Oracle codes. When you allow yourself to be seen fully, your presence becomes a transmission. Your compassion emanates naturally and effortlessly from your integrated shadow work. So empathy is demonstrated, not performed. Your gift is showing others that empathic awareness and protective strength can coexist in one being. Second house. Your ability to perceive the inherent value in people, situations, and your environment informs your perspective on what's truly important. You can sense whether opportunities, purchases, or investments align with your deeper values, not just their surface worth, but whether they genuinely serve your well-being and purpose. You understand resources as tools for protection and nurturing rather than just symbols of power or status. Your karmic memory includes lifetimes of having to survive with limited resources while under dominance, which taught you to be resourceful, strategic, and deeply appreciative of what you have. It's helpful to remember that creating material security for yourself is part of the human experience. Doing so doesn't, in and of itself, make you materialistic or superficial. When balanced, you build material security through intuitive decision-making and careful stewardship. You know instinctively what investments of time and energy and resources align with your values and which opportunities carry hidden costs. Your relationship with money reflects your deeper understanding that true wealth includes safety, peace, and the ability to protect what matters. When unbalanced, you may hoard resources from paranoia rather than practical planning or struggle with worthiness wounds, so wounds around self-worth, likely feeling that you must justify every purchase or resource that you claim. The work here may include healing the double rejection wound. You may struggle with not feeling valuable regardless of what you provide, offer, or contribute. This pattern often looks like proving your usefulness rather than contributing your value. This placement encourages you to understand that you are worthy of resources and taking up space, just like anyone else. You don't need to overcompensate or prove you're a quote-unquote good Draco through material sacrifice. The shadow territory is spiritual materialism in reverse, so believing that needing material security somehow makes you less evolved. This shadow looks like rejecting wealth, comfort, or abundance as either too aggressive or apologizing for having resources when others don't. Another pattern here is using poverty consciousness as proof of your empathic nature and virtue. Oracle codes. Your gift is teaching others that material abundance and spiritual integrity can coexist. You model sacred relationship with resources, using assets to create sanctuary, not control. When you release the adaptive guilt around having material security, you become living proof that empathic beings can thrive materially without compromising their compassion. Third house, the voice of visions. Your communication style carries frequencies beyond words. When you speak, you're transmitting on multiple levels: the literal meaning, the energetic signature, and often prophetic insight woven throughout. People may later realize that you've said something deeply significant that they didn't fully grasp in that moment. You speak in layers, offering surface meaning for those who need practical information while embedding wisdom that only receptive listeners will catch. This is natural, multidimensional expression, not manipulation. Your thinking integrates logic and intuition seamlessly, making you excellent at translating mystical experiences into accessible language when you choose to. Your mind perceives patterns across timelines. You notice synchronicities, symbols, and omens that others miss entirely. This gives you an almost prophetic quality in everyday conversation. You sense what's coming before it arrives. When balanced, you communicate your visions clearly without overwhelming those less intuitive. You learn to adjust your frequency to match your audience while maintaining authenticity. When unbalanced, you may obscure your meaning with overly mystical language as protection or silence your intuitive voice entirely from fear of judgment. The work here is learning to share your perceptions without apologizing for perceiving more than others. Your challenge is developing trust that your multidimensional awareness deserves expression, not just private contemplation. This placement encourages you to release self-censorship from fear of being labeled as too much or crazy. You likely have a pattern of knowing something, staying quiet to avoid awkwardness, then watching it unfold exactly as you perceived. The work here includes learning when to speak plainly versus when to cloak your knowing in metaphor. Strategic communication isn't dishonesty, it's wisdom about what various audiences can receive. Shadow territory. The shadow territory here involves using obscure or overly mystical language as a protective barrier. If people can't understand you, they can't reject you or weaponize your insights against you. This creates distance that feels safe but prevents genuine connection. Withholding clear communication as knowledge hoarding shows up here too. Paranoia that if you speak plainly, someone will steal your insights or use them manipulatively. Another pattern is second-guessing your intuitive hits before even voicing them, then regretting your silence when events prove you right. Oracle codes. When you speak from integrated wisdom, your words carry intuitive transmission. You're here to normalize multidimensional perception in everyday conversation. Your gift is showing others that accessing intuitive insight doesn't require abandoning practical communication. Both can exist simultaneously through you. Fourth house, compassionate grounding. Home is your sacred haven, and your approach to creating it is both empathic and fiercely protective. You create sanctuary through energetic safety. Your home isn't a fortress, it's a refuge where authenticity is not just allowed but cultivated. Your emotional foundation is built on multidimensional awareness and deep connection to natural cycles. You feel the seasons in your bones. You sense shifts in family dynamics before they surface and instinctively know when someone in your household needs space versus support. This makes you a profoundly attuned nurturer, though you may struggle with the weight of feeling everyone's emotional undercurrents. With practice, you can extend your natural cloaking ability to protect your entire household, creating an energetic field that keeps external chaos from penetrating your family's peace. This gift that emerged as survival adaptation now serves as compassionate guardianship. When balanced, you're here to break cycles of dominance and submission within family systems. Your presence alone begins transmuting ancestral patterns, both for your Earth lineage and your star family. When unbalanced, you may become the family's emotional sponge, absorbing everyone's pain in an unconscious attempt to heal karmic wounds that aren't yours to carry. The work here involves learning that protecting your family doesn't mean carrying the entire emotional load. This placement often creates patterns where you take on and attempt to transmute karma for all of your lineages, biological family, soul family, and even collective karma. The invitation is to distinguish between empathic awareness and karmic responsibility. It is possible to feel family pain without owning it. You can hold space for healing without becoming the healer who fixes everything. And you can honor your ancestral wounds without perpetually reopening them in service to others' growth. This house also invites you to ground your mystical nature in domestic life while maintaining your gifts. Many ETAMINs feel torn between quote-unquote normal family life and their intuitive practices, as if being a present parent or partner means abandoning spiritual work. Integration means both, not either or. Shadow territory here includes ancestral martyrdom, such as sacrificing your well-being to prove you're healing family karma properly. This shadow believes that if you're not suffering, you're not doing the work. Some ETAMINs unconsciously recreate dominance-submission dynamics in their own homes, either becoming controlling or completely self-erasing. Also, energy cloaking can become problematic here if you're habitually hiding your true feelings from family, creating emotional distance while physically present, or extending this protection to family members who haven't asked for it, which inadvertently stifles their own spiritual development. Oracle codes. When you walk in balance with your ETAMIN gifts and integrated shadow, your frequency transmutes family karma across timelines. This is your gift to both your Earth family and your star lineages, demonstrating that cycles can end, that empathy heals what was damaged through dominance, and that home can be a sanctuary without being a prison. Fifth house. Your creative channels pull from intuitive and visionary realms rather than strictly personal expression. Your gifts often emerge quietly, mysteriously, through you rather than from you. Even when you're just having fun, you're often downloading and translating frequencies others can't access. You express yourself most authentically through mystical arts like dream journaling, divination practices, tarot, pendulum channeling, frequency painting, music that carries energetic transmission, or creative writing that bridges dimensions. Your joy comes from allowing divine flow rather than forcing artistic output. When you create from this surrendered state, your work carries healing frequency, whether you intend to or not. In this house, romance and pleasure for you require emotional safety and energetic resonance. You can't engage intimately with people whose energy feels chaotic or untrustworthy. Dating may feel complicated because you sense too much, reading people's wounds, hidden agendas, and unconscious patterns before they reveal them consciously. This protects you, but it can also keep you isolated. When balanced, you allow yourself to be seen in your creative expression without shame about your Draco lineage or fear of judgment about your mystical nature. You learn that visibility doesn't automatically make you a target. When unbalanced, you may hide your gifts, creating only privately or sharing your work apologetically. unconsciously dimming your light to make others comfortable or to avoid attention that feels unsafe. The work here is releasing the pattern of creative hiding. Many Edamins with this placement are extraordinarily talented, but keep their gifts secret, shared only with trusted few, or published under pseudonyms that create maximum distance from their identity. The fear underneath this is, if people see my gifts, they'll want to either exploit them or reject me for being too different. The work here is learning that creative visibility doesn't require you to uncloak completely or share everything. Strategic visibility is wisdom, not compromise. You can share your gifts publicly while maintaining energetic boundaries and personal privacy. This house also invites you to reclaim joy without guilt. Many Edamins struggle to fully enjoy pleasure, play, or celebration. There's an unconscious belief that you don't deserve pleasure given the karmic suffering within your lineage. Shadow territory. Creative martyrdom, which involves believing that your gifts are only valuable if they serve others' healing. This shadow struggles to create purely for pleasure or personal expression, always needing to justify creative time through its utility or spiritual service. Another pattern is refusing to monetize creative gifts from fear of quote-unquote selling out or becoming exploitative. This creates unnecessary poverty and reinforces the belief that empathic beings can't thrive materially through their talents. Oracle codes. Your creative work is channeled transmission when you allow it. You're here to demonstrate that art can heal, that joy is paradigm shifting in lineages that are scarred by trauma, and that revealing your gifts without apology is an act of rebellion for empathic beings. When you create from integrated wholeness, your work becomes the safety net that allows others to lean into their talents too. Sixth house. Intuitive service. Your approach to work and daily routine is deeply attuned to what's needed in the moment. You flow with empathic awareness, sensing what requires attention and responding with compassionate precision. You're naturally drawn to healing work, though not always in conventional forms. Your service often includes energetic protection, space clearing, intuitive counseling, or any work that requires seeing beyond surface issues to the root causes. You understand that true healing addresses energetic and karmic patterns, not just symptoms. Your daily routines work best when they include intuitive practices, such as meditation, dream work, divination practices like tarot, pendulum work, channeling, and time in nature, or other activities that keep you connected to subtle realms. Without these practices, you become ungrounded, absorb too much from your environment, and struggle with your empathic sensitivity becoming overwhelming rather than useful. Health for you is deeply connected to energetic boundaries and emotional well-being. Your body responds to emotional toxicity and energetic overwhelm with physical symptoms. When balanced, you serve from flow rather than depletion. You've learned to balance empathic awareness with self-preservation, offering genuine help without martyring yourself in the process. When unbalanced, you may overcompensate through excessive service, maybe unconsciously trying to prove that you're a quote-unquote good Draco or just good enough by giving until you collapse. The work here is about releasing the need to earn worthiness through constant service. This placement often creates patterns where you believe your value depends on how much you give, help, fix, or heal. The exhaustion isn't from the work itself. It's from the unconscious belief that if you stop serving, you'll be rejected or exposed as unworthy. The work involves learning that rest is sacred, not selfish. Your nervous system requires downtime to process all the empathic information you absorb. Without rest, your gifts become burdens. Sensitivity turns into reactivity, intuition becomes paranoia, and compassion depletes into resentment. This house also encourages you to develop discernment around who and what deserves your service. Not every problem is yours to solve. Not every person who asks for help is actually ready for change. Strategic service isn't cold. It's wisdom about where your energy creates genuine impact versus where you're being used as emotional labor or a spiritual bypass for others. Shadow territory, service martyrdom, or self-sacrifice disguised as service. This includes believing that if you're not exhausted, you haven't served properly. The shadow measures your value by your level of depletion, unconsciously creating servitude patterns from past lifetimes. Another pattern here includes refusing help when it's offered because asking for support feels like weakness or a burden to others. You may have deep resistance to being on the receiving end of care, only comfortable in the helper role. This perpetuates the imbalanced dynamic where you overfunction and never experience genuine reciprocity. Health issues may emerge as your body's way of forcing rest when you won't choose it consciously. Chronic fatigue, mysterious pain, or nervous system dysregulation often signal that you're absorbing too much energetically and need to strengthen boundaries. Oracle codes. When you serve from integrated wholeness, your work is genuine contribution rather than obligatory labor. Your gift is demonstrating that strategic service, strong boundaries, and compassionate care can coexist. Service doesn't require martyrdom. Your ability to hold this line dissolves karmic imbalance for this lineage. You're here to model for other empathic beings the difference between selfless service and self-sacrificing martyrdom. That's a big one. 7th house, empathic partnership. Your approach to relationships is deeply intuitive and requires emotional safety as foundation. You seek true equality where empathy flows in both directions. You cannot thrive in relationships where you're the only one feeling, sensing, or adapting. You may attract partners who mirror your healing work, sometimes through their own empathic gifts, sometimes through triggering your unintegrated shadows. Fun stuff. Relationships reveal where you still hide, over-accommodate, or fail to assert your needs from fear of conflict or rejection. Your telepathic and empathic abilities are heightened in intimate partnerships. You feel your partner's emotions, sense their unspoken needs, and know their truth even when they're lying to themselves. This requires partners who can handle being truly seen. Many people find this level of transparency uncomfortable or invasive. When balanced, you form partnerships based on authentic resonance, mutual respect, and reciprocal empathy. You learn to be visible and vulnerable without losing yourself in the relationship. When unbalanced, you may repeat patterns of over-accommodating, hiding your needs, or attracting partners who exploit your empathic gifts while offering little in return. The work here is learning that healthy partnership includes your needs, boundaries, and authentic self-expression, not just adapting to what partners want. The work involves releasing the belief that love requires you to become smaller, quieter, or more quote-unquote normal. Integrated partnership means finding people who can meet your intensity, honor your gifts, and respect your boundaries without you having to perform or prove your worth. Shadow territory. Relationship martyrdom. Staying in unhealthy partnerships because you believe you can heal or change your partner through enough empathy and patience. The important distinction here is this shadow confuses compassion with enabling, often tolerating mistreatment because they're wounded or they're doing their best. Another pattern includes telepathic entanglement. So losing track of where your emotions end and your partner's begin. Overfunctioning empathically creates relationships where you're doing emotional labor for both people, leaving no space for partners to develop their own emotional intelligence. Oracle codes. When you form partnerships from a place of integrated wholeness, the relationships demonstrate that depth and intimacy can feel safe, that being fully seen is a gift, not a threat, and that two empathic beings create something greater than either could alone. 8th house. Your relationship with power dynamics, shared resources, and raw intimacy operates on levels here that others can barely perceive. Your awareness of what's hidden beneath the surface, the unspoken contracts, karmic agreements, energetic exchanges, and power dynamics that shape relationships and collective systems makes you excellent at shadow work because you're not afraid of what you'll find in the void. Your ETAMIN gifts can thrive in the depth of this shadowland because your gifts were born here. The 8th house rules what's hidden, taboo, and transformative, all realms where your intuitive abilities excel. You have innate access to occult knowledge, mystical perception, and the ability to navigate between dimensions with ease. You may be a natural medium, channel, energy healer, or practitioner of esoteric arts. Death, rebirth, and transformation don't frighten you. They're familiar territory. When balanced, you use your enigmatic gifts ethically, share resources without reservation, and engage in intimate relationships with genuine vulnerability and trust. When unbalanced, you may withhold your gifts from paranoia, use esoteric knowledge to maintain distance or superiority, or struggle with fears around deep intimacy and merged resources. The work. This house encourages you to release the impulse to hoard or control the flow of esoteric wisdom and mystery. There's a difference between being perceptive versus paranoid about who receives your intuitive guidance. The blanket pattern of fear-based withholding perpetuates behaviors that no longer serve. The deeper work here involves healing your relationship with power itself. Many ETAMIN Starseeds carry the karmic imprint of trauma caused by corrupted authority, being overpowered, and surviving distorted realities. So even when you have access to things associated with quote-unquote power, such as financial resources, influence, or even occult mastery, you may unconsciously sabotage it, give it away, or refuse to fully claim it. This placement invites you to discover that empathic beings can be empowered without becoming corrupted. Intimacy work here involves learning to merge resources and energy fields without losing sovereignty or becoming entangled. The challenge is allowing yourself to become truly vulnerable with partners, so letting them see your depth, your mystery, your shadows, and your full intensity without fear of rejection or exploitation. The shadow territory here is spiritual elitism around occult knowledge. This shadow believes that most people aren't ready for the wisdom you carry, which can create hierarchies where you position yourself as a gatekeeper to hidden teachings. Discernment is always appropriate when sharing your depth and gifts with others or determining the superficial seekers. However, it becomes a power play when your withholding is from a place of judgment rather than discernment. Another shadow here is using your spiritual gifts to maintain control or distance in intimate relationships. You may unconsciously read partner's energy to stay 10 steps ahead emotionally, preventing genuine vulnerability and surrender. Occult mastery can easily become a hiding place rather than a shared gift. Some admins with this placement also struggle with undermining any situation where they gain influence, money, or authority. This creates cycles of near success followed by self-sabotage. Oracle codes. When you operate from integrated wholeness in this house, you become a profound guide through transformation and shadow work. Your occult mastery serves collective healing. You teach others to navigate their darkness, transmute their shadows, and access mystical gifts without fear. You demonstrate that the deepest wisdom often lives in what we've been taught to hide or fear. Ninth house. Your approach to knowledge, belief systems, and higher learning is deeply intuitive and experiential. Traditional learning may not interest you as much as unconventional, mystical teachings, so sacred traditions that honor multiple realities. Linear, dogmatic belief systems feel confining. You understand truth to be a layered, internal process of removing falsehoods until you reach that which is self-evident and cannot be reduced any further, not a collection of memorized data points. This makes you an extraordinary teacher for those ready to expand beyond consensus reality, though you may struggle with formal education systems that demand conformity to singular perspectives. Important distinction here. This trust in direct knowing applies to spiritual and metaphysical work. If you're called to serve in clinical settings, such as medicine or mental health or other fields where human safety depends on proper training, honoring both your intuitive gifts and appropriate credentialing isn't compromise, it's integrity. The two work together, not against each other. Your relationship with foreign cultures, long-distance travel, and exploration is guided by energetic resonance more than geographic curiosity. You're drawn to places, teachings, and traditions that carry frequencies matching your soul remembrance. Publishing, teaching, and sharing wisdom are natural expressions for you, though you may approach them unconventionally. You might teach through divination practices, channel written transmissions, or create courses that blend mystical and practical wisdom. Your students often report that your teachings activate something in them that goes beyond words themselves. When balanced, you ensure that others understand the mystical insights being offered while honoring that others walk different paths. When unbalanced, you may withhold teachings from fear of judgment, share only with quote-unquote worthy students, or struggle with imposter syndrome about your non-traditional path to wisdom. The work here is releasing the need to validate your knowing through external credentials or traditional learning paths. Many edamins with this placement carry shame about being self-taught or learning through mystical means rather than formal education. The work here involves learning to balance trusting your mystical downloads, dimensional travels, and empathic learning as valid information with the external requirement for credentials. Just understand that your unconventional path to wisdom is exactly what makes your teachings valuable. You offer perspectives that traditional education can't access. This house also invites you to examine where you might limit your teachings or publishing from fear of visibility. Strategic sharing expresses wisdom, but never sharing expresses avoidance. Shadow territory here includes spiritual gatekeeping disguised as protecting sacred teachings. This shadow reveals hierarchies and prerequisites that keep knowledge exclusive. While there is value and validity in clarifying whether or not your audience is ready for deeper levels of wisdom and practice, it's your approach to determining this that will expose the reasons behind it. Another shadow here is refusing to formally teach or publish despite having profound wisdom to offer. You may rationalize this as humility, but underneath lives the fear of being judged as fraudulent or arrogant if you claim authority as a teacher. Some edamins unconsciously adopt a perpetual student identity, always learning, never teaching. This creates safe distance from visibility while allowing you to engage in mystical communities without claiming your own mastery. Oracle codes. When you teach from integrated wisdom, you transmit far more than just information or intellectual understanding. Experience speaks through you, allowing you to guide others into their own mystical endeavors rather than demanding that they accept your interpretations. Your gift is demonstrating that wisdom can be both ethereal and accessible, that teaching can empower without creating dependency, and that multiple truths can coexist without contradiction. 10th house, empathic authority. Your career path and public presence operate through earned influence rather than demanded obedience. You gain authority through demonstrated competence, compassionate action, and the quiet power of sustained integrity. People trust you not because you demand it, but because your presence and track record prove that you're trustworthy. You're drawn to careers involving protection, guidance, healing, or any work that serves vulnerable populations. Many edamins find themselves in roles as counselors, energy workers, intuitive consultants, nonprofit leaders, environmental advocates, or other positions where empathy and strategic thinking combine. You excel when your work aligns with your deeper purpose of creating safety and correcting systemic imbalances. Your professional reputation often includes being the person who sees what others miss, whether that's solutions to complex problems, hidden dynamics in organizations, or future trends before they're obvious. This makes you valuable in strategic roles, though you may struggle with visibility required for recognition. You often create alternative professional paths, entrepreneurship, consulting, independent practice, or roles within non-traditional organizations. You need autonomy and value alignment in your work and may struggle in environments that prioritize profit over people or demand ethical compromises. When balanced, you hold public authority without becoming controlling, lead through inspiration rather than mandate, and build spiritual legacy based on impact rather than ego. When unbalanced, you may hide your capabilities from fear of visibility. When unbalanced, you may hide your gifts and skills from fear of visibility, refuse leadership roles you're qualified for, or unconsciously sabotage professional success from adaptive guilt. The work here is learning to claim public visibility without shame about your lineage or fear of being targeted. You may fear that professional visibility will expose you to judgment or attract people who want to exploit your gifts. The work involves releasing the belief that success or recognition makes you corrupt. Empathic beings can have successful careers, earn good money, and hold positions of influence without compromising their integrity. You don't need to stay small professionally to prove that you're not dominating. This house also encourages you to examine where over-responsibility shows up in your career. You may take on excessive workload, feel personally responsible for organizational problems, or struggle to delegate because you don't trust others to handle things with your level of care. That one's for me. Learning that leadership can be shared and that your worth isn't measured by your productivity is essential work in this house. Another layer includes distinguishing between strategic invisibility, sometimes useful, and habitual hiding, fear-based limitation. You can be selectively visible, so being known for your work without being a public personality. There's plenty of space between complete anonymity and full celebrity. Shadow territory, professional martyrdom. This includes sacrificing your well-being, time, or resources to career work, believing that visible success requires suffering. This shadow measures professional legitimacy by how much you sacrifice and consciously proving your worth through work-related exhaustion. Another pattern is refusing advancement, leadership positions, or higher pay from fear of becoming controlling or exploitative, or being perceived as such due to these visible roles. This keeps you perpetually in supporting roles even when you're qualified to lead. Some admins struggle with imposter syndrome despite demonstrated competence, certain that if people knew your real nature, they'd revoke your professional credibility. This creates anxiety about being quote-unquote found out, even when there's nothing to find. Career self-sabotage shows up as mysteriously walking away from opportunities, creating conflict right before promotions, or making choices that keep you below the radar professionally. The unconscious belief underneath is that visibility equals danger. Oracle codes. When you lead from integrated authority, you model that empathic beings can hold power responsibly. Your professional presence demonstrates that compassion and competence aren't opposites, that sensitive people can make hard decisions, and that ethical leadership creates better outcomes than dominance ever could. You're here to redefine what conscious leadership looks like. 11th house. Your approach to groups, communities, and collective movements is guided by empathic discernment and visionary perception. You sense what communities need and facilitate organic emergence rather than forced direction. You're drawn to humanitarian causes, collective healing work, and movements focused on systemic change, particularly those addressing power imbalances, protecting vulnerable populations, or correcting historical harms. Your ETAMIN lineage makes you naturally attuned to where dominance has damaged collective well-being, and you feel called to help restore balance. Your gift with groups is creating space where diverse perspectives can coexist without requiring conformity. You understand that healthy collectives honor individual sovereignty while moving towards shared purpose. This makes you valuable in community organizing, though you may struggle with groups that default to hierarchy or demand allegiance to singular viewpoints. Friendships for you require energetic resonance and authentic values alignment. You can immediately sense when someone's public persona doesn't match their private integrity. This makes you selective about close friendships, though once earned, your loyalty is profound. You're drawn to other empaths, mystics, and beings doing shadow work. People who understand that depth matters more than surface charm. When balanced, you contribute your gifts to collectives without losing your sovereignty, collaborate without requiring control, and trust that groups can find their way even when the process is messy. When unbalanced, you may isolate from community entirely from fear of being misunderstood, or you may overfunction in groups by taking responsibility for collective dysfunction that isn't yours to fix. The work here is learning to participate in communities without martyring yourself to collective healing. This placement often carries patterns where you feel responsible for group emotional processing, conflict resolution, or maintaining everyone's well-being. The unconscious belief here is, if I don't hold this together, it will fall apart, or groups need me to keep them from becoming toxic. This work is about releasing the need to manage collective dynamics. Communities have their own wisdom and evolutionary path. Your role is contributing your gifts, not controlling outcomes or preventing all conflict. Another layer is learning to receive community support, not just provide it. This is really important to hear. Many Edamins with this placement struggle being on the receiving end of collective care, only comfortable in the helping roles. True belonging includes reciprocity, so being supported when you're struggling, not just supporting others. Shadow territory, community martyrdom. This looks like joining every cause, showing up for every crisis, attending every meeting, and exhausting yourself in service to the collective healing. This shadow measures your worth by how much you sacrifice for communities, unconsciously proving your value through humanitarian overfunctioning. Another pattern here is spiritual bypassing through collective identity. Some Edamins hide in communities, using group identity as protection from developing individual presence. Paranoia about group dynamics can emerge if you become hypervigilant to power imbalances, seeing potential corruption everywhere. While some discernment is healthy, this unhealed shadow just won't trust any group structure. Oracle codes. When you participate in communities from integrated wholeness, you help collectives evolve beyond unbalanced leadership dynamics while honoring the truth that healthy groups need adaptable structure that allows for organic growth as the group progresses. You're here to demonstrate that you can belong without completely blending in, essentially becoming invisible. That diversity of perspective actually strengthens movements, and that empathic beings can organize assertively without becoming authoritarian. 12th house. This is profound territory for Edamin gifts. The 12th house rules the unconscious, karmic patterns, mystical experiences, and dissolution of ego boundaries, all realms where your intuitive and empathic abilities reach their greatest depths. You have natural access to dimensions beyond physical reality and can navigate liminal states. Your connection to the collective unconscious is immediate and constant. You sense humanity's shared pain, ancestral wounds, and collective shadow without trying. This makes you a natural channel, medium, or mystic who bridges physical and non-physical realms. You may experience spontaneous visions, prophetic dreams, or downloads of information from sources you can't logically explain. This placement carries the weight of ancestral karma, both your biological as well as your star families. You likely feel called to clear karmic patterns, not just for yourself, but for entire lineages. Watch out for that one. Your gifts with cloaking, lucid dreaming, astral projection, and interdimensional travel are heightened here. You may naturally access past life memories, timeline jumping, or quantum states where multiple realities exist simultaneously. The veil between dimensions is thin for you. Sometimes a gift, sometimes a burden, depending on your relationship with these abilities. Grounding is always so important here. When balanced, you work with extrasensory gifts consciously, maintain healthy boundaries between self and collective, and understand that some karmic patterns require clearing, while others need witnessing without taking them on. When unbalanced, you may become overwhelmed by empathic absorption of collective pain, losing yourself in spiritual bypassing, or struggle with addiction, escapism, or mental health challenges from inability to ground your consciousness in physical reality. The work. This house encourages you to develop the skill of mystical grounding, so the ability to access transcendent states while remaining anchored in your physical body. Many Edamins with this placement struggle with being too open energetically, causing you to absorb everything from your environment without filters. Learning to consciously cloak, set boundaries, and close your energy field when appropriate is essential for your well-being. The deeper work involves discerning which karmic patterns are yours to clear versus which ones you're witnessing as part of collective consciousness. You cannot heal all karma, all trauma, or all ancestral wounds. Your role is clearing what directly impacts your lineage and soul evolution while holding compassionate space for others doing their own work. This placement also invites examination of spiritual martyrdom, which looks like sacrificing your mental health, energetic well-being, or physical vitality in service to the collective healing. Shadow territory, spiritual bypassing through avoidance. So this looks like using mystical experiences, meditation, or altered states to escape from human responsibilities, relationships, or emotional processing. This shadow prefers ethereal realms over earthly presence because, let's face it, physical reality can feel too painful or limiting sometimes. Another shadow here is identifying so strongly with your spiritual abilities that you lose any sense of self beyond them. So things like, I am a channel, or I am an empath, I am a mystic, becomes total identity rather than a description of the gifts you possess. This creates dependency on mystical experiences for a sense of worth or purpose. Addiction and escapism show up here when mystical sensitivity becomes overwhelming and you seek ways to numb the intensity of your perception. Substances, dissociation, or compulsive spiritual practices like meditation, divination work, channeling all the time might serve as unconscious attempts to escape the sharpness of feeling everything. Oracle codes. When you work with this house from integrated wholeness, you become a profound guide through the darkest night of souls. You understand that spiritual mastery includes both transcendence and embodiment, that clearing karma requires discernment, not martyrdom, and that the deepest healing happens when we remain present to our humanity while accessing cosmic consciousness. You're here to demonstrate that empathic beings can hold enormous mystical capacity without losing themselves, that sensitivity can be protected through conscious practice, and that passing through the veil between dimensions becomes a gift rather than a burden. This is where your ETAMIN gifts shine brightest, showing that exile doesn't mean permanent disconnection from source, and that adaptation can become mastery. Evolutionary journey through the nodes. Here's where it gets real. The cosmic curriculum you signed up for. This is where your DRACO-ETAMIN connection invites you into deeper mastery through challenge. DRACO-ETAMIN South Node. Past life gifts and what you bring in. Highly developed empathic and intuitive abilities. Natural gifts for cloaking, energetic protection, and creating sanctuary for yourself and others. Deep capacity for compassion and understanding born from experiencing oppression and survival. Innate ability to perceive blind spots in systems and recognize manipulation. Past life experience, navigating power imbalances, adapting under dominance, and surviving through strategic awareness. Mastery of reading energy, sensing intention, and protecting through invisibility when needed. Inherited wisdom about correcting mental distortions and clearing manipulative frequencies. Deep knowing of how to hold space for transformation without controlling the process. These are not small gifts. These are profound capacities that you've spent lifetimes developing under extreme conditions. But here's what your soul is asking now. DRACO-ETAMIN North Node, soul growth direction and what you're learning. Learning to be visible without shame, fear, or need to justify your existence. Balancing empathic awareness with sovereign boundaries. Developing comfort with receiving support, abundance, and recognition, not just providing it. Growing into claiming your authentic authority, resources, and autonomy without guilt or fear of becoming corrupt. Balancing compassion for others with compassion for yourself. Your needs matter equally. And teaching others through embodied empowerment, not just empathic understanding. Key evolutionary themes for DRACO-ETAMIN Starseeds. Moving from carrying collective karma to clearing only what's yours. From apologizing for existence to celebrating your presence. From survival-based cloaking to strategic visibility. From I can handle it alone to I deserve support. From empathic absorption to sovereign sensitivity. From proving worthiness to knowing your inherent value. From perpetual service to balanced reciprocity. From adaptation guilt to healthy pride in your gifts. And from hypervigilance to grounded discernment. With DRACO-ETAMIN, this is the lineage that proves empathy is an evolutionary advantage, not a weakness. Wrap up. The world doesn't just need your empathy and service. It needs your confident, visible, unapologetic presence, demonstrating that sensitive souls can thrive, can be bold and empathic, and can be successful without compromising integrity. Very important. Beautiful soul, you didn't come here to keep hiding. You came here to demonstrate that empathic beings can hold enormous responsibility. The compassion can arise in any lineage, even ones associated with dominance. Your task now is to step into visibility without shame, to claim your gifts without guilt, and to trust that being seen doesn't automatically make you a target. Okay, your turn. What ETAMIN gifts have you already activated? What are some of the DRACO-ETAMIN lessons that you're still working through? And where has your demonstrated compassion completely reset the energy of a room or a group or a crowd? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your stories. And remember, humanity is a group project, so thanks for doing your part. Entrepreneurship. 10th house. You gain authority through demonstrated ego, paranoia, and the quiet power of sustained martyrdom. People trust you because you demand it. People trust you because paranoia. People trust you because oracle codes. I like that. Your presence and track record prove that you're sometimes a gift, sometimes a burden. This shadow prefers oracle codes. Again. Yeah. You're drawn to careers involving corruption everywhere. You're drawn to careers involving addiction and escapism. Sound like a question. All right. People want to exploit your gifts because let's face it, compulsive spiritual practices like meditation all the time. This looks like spiritual bypassing through avoidance. Wait. What the hell? All right, whatever. Scratch that. You excel when your work aligns with your deeper purpose of toxic positivity. Wait, all right. You cannot heal all compulsive spiritual practices like meditation all the time. I don't know, I like that. Toxic positivity. Okay, I think we're good. Your professional reputation often includes spiritual bypassing through avoidance. Your professional reputation often includes ego. Watch out for that one. Shit. Your professional reputation often includes being the person who cannot heal all karma because let's face it, shit, night's kicking in.